we're going to talk about energy management today. What does that mean? What could I possibly talk about energy management? We talking about solar? Are we talking about energy drinks? It can mean so many things. Well, we're talking about how to have flow in your life so you can have better results beyond anything you can imagine. And we have Rosie Guagliardo in the house, and she is the founder of Inner Brilliance Coaching, and she's got a whole method on energy management so that you can have an extraordinary life. She brings this method of hers into her programs called Be Perfectly You. How amazing is that? And Be Magnetically You, your journey to authentic achievement. So if you've been wanting to take your life to the next level and have extraordinary love and happiness and health and whatever else you want in your life, we're talking to Rosie. Hey, Rosie, so good to have you here.
Hi, Junie. It's so nice to be here with you and everyone listening.
Yay, 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 yay. When I saw your bio and I saw that you had your own system for energy management, I was so curious. But I know before we go there, there was a road to get there. And one of the things I have to say that stood out to me when I was reading about you and learning about you, first of all, was your honesty around your journey, and that you had a checklist of, if only I did these things, if I achieved these things, then I'm good to go, then I'm happy. And that wasn't exactly your experience. So I would love for you to actually share your journey of, oh, this isn't actually working, to how it worked for you.
Sure. Thanks for asking. Basically, I got to this point in my life where I kept thinking, okay, I just need to get to my next set of goals, right? I needed to get I actually used to be married, so I thought, okay, I need to get my next promotion, have a better marriage, get in better shape. I'm sure this might sound familiar to many people. And I had my checklist and I thought, okay, once I get there, then everything will be perfect. That, the P word we use there. And I was lucky. I had all this stuff show up in my life. Fun job, married to my college sweetheart, and cute condo overlooking the lake. And then I sat there and I thought, okay, now I just have to keep working harder and harder to get to the next set of goals. And
Ah,
I realized, can you relate, Junie?
well, yes, and I'm sure everyone can relate, because that's what we're taught. We're taught to meet these goals, to have these goals, to strive to have this checklist, and then we can relax, and we just keep going and thinking that that something will finally click, and then we can relax and enjoy our life.
Right. And then, yeah, you get laughed at. Well, and I share a little funny side note, but my relatives in Sicily lived to be into their mid 90s. And Junie, I thought, I can't do this for another 6 decades. I just can't keep up. And what I started realizing was all these perfect things weren't feeling that great anymore. And I felt like I was in constant survival mode. And that's when I knew something had to change, something had to shift in the way I approached my life. And I started reevaluating everything. What really made me happy? And what was I doing? What did I really want deep down inside? Not my friends, not my family, not society. And that's when I started realizing I was hiding different parts of myself to show up as, the perfect worker, the perfect daughter, you name it. And again, that was draining my energy. And I was just laughing because I'm like, again, I can't keep this up. I can't keep over engineering my life, because guess what? Even though I got to this place where things seemed great, it didn't really work. I was doing what I call shoulding on myself, doing all these things. Have you heard of
Exactly.
that?
And I'm always like, stop shitting on yourself. And I also heard you say that you were looking outside on some level of, what are other people doing and what are other people telling you? I mean, that is the biggest friggin' thing that challenges us as human beings. And certainly in our culture, where we're kind of taught, when you get this checklist and you do all these things and you jump through these hoops, you'll be happy. And so you saw it wasn't working. You had these things and you still were like exhausted, can't live to my 90s at this pace. Yeah. So you were hiding aspects. And of course, I'm a shadow worker. So you're speaking my language where it's like, I better not show this part because I'll look too weak, or I better not show this part because I might look like too successful or too whatever. And hiding parts of us
Isn't
does
that
not work.
interesting? Yeah, how we hide even the good parts.
Yeah.
Oh, I might be too successful or whatnot. So to your point, I was doing all this, I noticed I was doing all this shooting on myself. And sometimes it's even hard to notice the parts we're hiding because we're hiding them so well, even from ourselves. So I got to this point in my life, I said, I'm done. I am not going to keep doing what everyone else wants to. I'm going to do what I want. And then I sat there and I'm like, I'm not even sure what that is. And I thought, how is this possible? How can
Mm.
I not know what I want? And the truth is, I knew on some level, but I wasn't really ready to accept it. So that's something I work with my clients on. Yes, we can help you understand yourself better, but you also have to accept it and honor it. And when I started doing that, I started to learn really what was important to me. Again, not friends, family, and society. I started understanding my strengths and living from that place. And this is why I call my business Inner Brilliance Coaching, because I help people bring out their inner brilliance. And I felt like I finally was able to be my vibrant self. And once I
Mm.
got to know myself, put that out into the world. And that's when I was able to start attracting people and situations and opportunities that aligned with my deepest desires, whether it was career or better health or love and relationships.
Yeah, there's so much there. Thank you. How we're being, how we're showing up, what we're putting out is what we're going to attract. It's everywhere. We know it. It's the law, And so if you're out of alignment and you're just focusing on what's outside of you and what you think you should be like, you're not being your authentic self. So I love that you tapped into your brilliance and that things shifted for you. One of the things I know is that we can take the time to slow down and ask these questions. And to your point, and you're spot on, those shadows are in shadow. Those blind spots are called blind spots for a reason. And we may not know exactly why we're holding back or why we're not really shining our light for those to see. So I'm curious, what shifted for you? How did you got to this point, you thought about Sicily. I totally get it. I'm on sabbatical right now, asking these really huge questions for myself right now about how I want to be, because I'm ready to do a shift as well. What was it for you that shifted where you were able to truly connect to your brilliance? And how are you working with people now with what you learned?
Well, what I started noticing is, believe it or not, when I understood my strengths, my values, what was important to me, and I started showing up that way, the real me was coming out. I had that relaxed confidence. I was happier day to day, not just when I achieved a certain goal. And I thought, oh my gosh, like this feels so much better. And we know we attract based on emotion. So if I'm feeling better, I started getting these results. And I realized, again, this might sound silly, but I was like, gosh, what could be easier than being you? Here's an idea. Why not be yourself?
Not to mention, there's no one else on the planet doing you. So you might as
Right.
well take the job that's been given to you to be you and be in that flow that you were talking about, that just to be able to relax and flow with what you know about yourself. Wow. Yeah.
In the way I did that, if I were to break it down, is I basically thought, okay, I got to know myself. Then I needed to accept it. Again, that's an important step. Just knowing yourself isn't enough. Then you have to honor yourself, right? Like really show up that way and say, okay, I'm going to set these boundaries. I'm going to follow through on honoring my own values. And that's when I started seeing, I call it the perfection in myself, but I don't mean like I'm so perfect, but just like I'm good just as I am. This is
Yeah.
good enough, right? And
Perfectly
so,
you.
yeah,
No one,
exactly.
no one else can fill those shoes. You are perfectly you. Exactly.
Right. And that's why I called the program that. And I laugh because it's obviously not about being perfect. It's just about connecting with your truth. And within that particular program I have, that's the first phase, connect with your truth by seeing the perfection within you. Then the second phase is seeing the perfection in others by learning how to connect with them. And then
Mm.
ultimately seeing the perfection in your world. And by that, I mean the beauty, the lessons that show up, right? We all know life is not perfect and things will happen. And it's how, again, how do you show up in those moments? And so I started understanding how I could show up with a more empowered perspective, a relaxed confidence. And again, when I'm putting that energy out there, I attract more of what I desire in an easier way.
Quick interruption, and then we'll get right back to the show. There is something time sensitive. There is a contest going on, and there's one lucky prize winner to win the Relationship Toolkit program. This is a 5-week program with me guiding you to help you really stand your ground and have healthy boundaries, to be able to speak your truth and trust your gut, to have good, solid self-esteem, and to learn what the healthy relationship that you desire looks like. You learn to rewrite your love story and so much more. So there'll be one winner. There's some really juicy second place prizes as well. So you're going to want to click the link in the show notes for enter the contest, and be sure to put your correct email address and your phone number so I can reach out to you and let you know if you're the winner. Good luck.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because the woman who's listening is wanting more for herself, whether it's a partner or just to have a better second half of life that's fulfilling. And if she's looking outside of herself, still jumping through hoops, or a lot of the women that do listen know about the hoops, know about the shoulding, want to stop, but don't necessarily know how to get into the flow, how to
Mhm.
have it more easily come to them, and to really know how to drop in. And like I said, I help them with the blind spots and the shadows. And I know you talk about energy management, and of course you have your own system. Could you share a little bit about energy management, your special system that you use? Because I'm dying to know.
Yeah, well, for me, everything comes down to energy. So I studied psychology at Northwestern, and then I went into marketing and advertising, and then I learned about coaching. That's the quick version of my journey.
Yeah.
And every time I kept noticing it's about energy, because when I was working a competitive advertising job, if I was drained, I wasn't going to do well there or even enjoy my relationships. Then when I got into coaching, I started learning all these different modalities around. It just kept boiling down to energy. Can you revitalize it? Can you keep it vibrant, preserve it? How do you generate it physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? And
Hmm.
that's when I started putting together my energy management method. And that is included in both my Be Perfectly You and then in Be Magnetically You, which I call my graduation program. I talk about mastering your energy, because that
Mm.
first step is just getting to know yourself, like I mentioned. Whereas the more energy mastery, let's say, that's where you take everything to a whole new level, where you're trusting and loving yourself more. Now,
Yeah.
these can sound like so inspiring, right? Oh, just do that. You'll be
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. We're
That's
we're
what,
gonna unpack this. We're definitely gonna unpack this. Keep going though.
but I just laugh because I love all the inspiration that's out in the world, but no one really lays out how you can get there, a
That's why
formula.
that's why I have this podcast. I do my
Mhm.
very best to not just go, just let go of the shoulds
Yeah.
and just know who you are and have flow in your life. It's like, fuck you,
Yeah.
like that's not going to really cut it, because you need to tell me
Yes.
how to do it. People are suffering and struggling. They beat themselves up. They're shitting on themselves and wondering, why the heck, how did I get to 55, 60, 65, and I am still exhausted, still worrying about what other people think? So tell us more about, how you support people, and maybe give us some really, a few like easy first steps for people to really start to harness the energy that is within them.
Exactly. You hit it on the head. It's within you already. You don't have to go outside of yourself to access this amazing energy. And the first step is envisioning you at your highest self. Really mindful of not using the term best self anymore. I still use it on occasion, but you just connecting with you at your highest self, your true essence, can provide so much energy. So really, that is my first step in what I call my magic formula.
Ooh,
And
magic
yeah,
formula.
I know.
We could
Doesn't
all
it
use
sound
a little
fun?
more magic,
I'll tell you more about the formula. But like I said, because we know energy is what we put out, we attract. And so your energy is not only affecting you, it's affecting others. And then the way they show up can impact you. Now, here's the key: we cannot get our energies enmeshed. That's when sometimes other people's thoughts and emotions, or what we've talked about, what we think we should do, can take over. So the key is really harnessing and tapping into you at your highest self as an energy source to help you move forward. And then your energies can meet, but it doesn't take over. I know that can be a little abstract, but hopefully that's making
No,
some
it
sense.
totally makes sense. And, there's something to be said about being, honoring ourselves, honoring what feels right to us, and letting somebody into our vortex of space, but not taking on them, you know? Uh, it's tricky, obviously. People have strong personalities. There's all the programming we've had around relationship and love. And ultimately, if you don't have healthy boundaries with your energy or with your time or with what you desire, it gets murky. It gets muddled. And that's where a lot of women will say when they want to get into a new relationship, I'm afraid of losing myself. I'm afraid of giving away myself. And that's where we have to really learn how to honor our truth, honor what's important to us. And we can't do that unless we know what it is and how to have that energetic, healthy boundary that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you start with that and you start to imagine and feel even better, if you can feel it in your body, like this is happening today. Because as you know, everything happens twice in our lives, once in our mind and then in real life. So you get to learn what you desire, truly desire, not the shoulds. Then you can start connecting with that, using that as an energy source to tap into. And then there's another piece to this that I like to share, and it's all part of like the first phase of Be Magnetically You, which is learning to accept what is, but not in a resigned or tolerant way, in a way that can empower you, right? Where you know this, if we resist something, we're not going to be able to move forward. Our energy gets stagnant. So I started learning how to accept what is. Again, this does not mean just be okay with anything, but can you be that loving witness or observer of what's occurring, of your
Mm.
thoughts, of your emotions, of what's happening around you? And then it's so magical because I get more, this is part of the relaxed confidence versus I'm so mad that I have to work late tonight, or that my partner wants to do this, or fill in the blank with what you're resisting. So if you could start to learn how to be that loving witness or observer, the resistance starts to drain away. And if you struggle with that, that's when I get into nervous system regulation, which I feel like is so trendy now, but I feel like we've been studying this for a while and know
Yeah.
how this is where you can, again, impact your own energy, right? So I love being able to use some of those tools, connecting with your highest self, being that witness or observer of what's coming up. And if needed, let me go back and notice some of those old patterns through nervous system regulation. And then how can I do that? And then ultimately you can co-regulate with others. whether you're still looking for love. I think all of this is important in any relationship we have. And then when we have that co-regulation, that calmness, I think, again, you could go out into whether it's your dating world or whatever that looks like for you. And people will feel that vibrant, brighter energy coming across.
Absolutely. I mean, more than ever, there's so much science right now around how we're being and our energetic, I don't even know what it's called, but how, the energy around us that's emanating from us, our field, so to speak, that it's like a vortex. It's, people come into it or they're repelled by it. And if we're wanting quality people, and let's talk just specifically relationships, if we're wanting high vibe people that are matching us in our hearts, in our brilliance or whatever it is, then we have to be running that kind of energy inside of us for them to even feel it. It's like walking into a room. If everybody's negative and everybody's talking about politics and the craziness and there's fighting going on, you walk into that room, it's palpable, versus if you walk into a prayer circle or, a kirtan or something that's going on where people are connecting to spirit. And so, there's that group dynamic and there is that individual dynamic. So I'm right there with you. It's like, and it's the language I have said earlier, and I continue to say, is how are we being, and how we're being will emanate from us, and that's what happens with people. And think about the people that are around you. And I'm talking to the watchers and listeners right now. It's like, who do you like to be around, and who do you try to avoid? What is it about them? Well, there's some energy field around them because of how they're being. And so start with you. Anything you wanted to add to that? Because I have another question, but I wanted
love
to
that.
give you an opportunity. Yeah.
I love everything you said, of course. I was like, yes, yes, and yes.
Well, you have to. It's my podcast.
I know.
Junie, you're
here.
so smart.
You can hear me, Junie, so I'm going to say those positive things. But no, yeah, everything you shared, right? And it's like when you're living on purpose, connected with your authentic answers, I say the same thing. It's who you're being inspires those authentic actions versus coming from that place of autopilot, shadow, right? The negative patterns that we have. I'm using the word negative, but that, that's kind of judging, but you know what I mean? So
the programming, all the stuff that we picked up. Yeah. The default. Yeah, exactly. The conditioning.
So then we can move, ideally, I feel like with the work we both do, we can then come from this heart-centered place. And it sounds cheesy, but shine from the inside out, and you'll be fueled by your inner life force. Yeah. That's what you were reminding me of. Everything you shared. I'm like, yeah, imagine you have this inner life force, and it could be exciting and vibrant and happy and shining, or it could be on a simmer, and that's okay too at times, but we don't want to be coming from that place at all times.
And that kind of comes back to the word flow that I mentioned earlier, and you've mentioned when we were talking before we started. If we're trying so hard and we're, trying to meet those goals and work so hard to fit in and do all the right things, that affects our energy. It affects our flow, and it's swimming upstream. And I just, as we're talking about our energy, it's like, confidence and relaxing into it. It's like the lazy freaking river, let yourself float and just be your perfect self the way you are, not having to be anything other than that. I want everyone right now to just take a breath into that. Like, what would change for you in your life if you were able to just be yourself and love it? Just to be yourself and love it, to accept yourself just as everything about you. I mean, think about the things that you hide, the energy it takes to hide parts of who you are. And granted, as I always say, sometimes we need to put on the mask or hide certain aspects. But if you can do it consciously by choice, that's empowering versus I better hide because I may not be liked or loved or blah, 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 blah. So yeah, I love how you're sharing this about the energy flow. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think you were asking earlier about, I feel like I could give you a million tips and techniques, but another one that I think could really help that just builds on when you said, okay, loving yourself. And then I automatically was hearing some, of the old tapes my clients have had, or I have had, like, okay, but X, Y, and Z isn't, I do this and this happens. And you also hear like you have to love yourself before someone could love those parts of you. And there's some debate on that. So what I like to do is go really down to what I call your foundation for wellness. Check in. What can you do for your energy physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually?
Yeah.
And when you start at those with just a check-in, no judgment, and again, I have all these tips and tools on how to do that. You can do the basics for physical, right? I know when I eat, I don't, I'll say healthier. I grew up with the Mediterranean diet. My family's from Sicily. So once I returned back to that, I might have moved away from it during college in my 20s. But once I went back to it, I started having more physical energy, more in my 30s and 40s than I ever did in my 20s. And then when I started learning about my coaching concepts, right? Understanding the inner critic and the mind work that we do. Oh my gosh. When I started embracing empowering thoughts, I felt much lighter and I could really flow more again. And same thing with obviously emotional and spiritual. Just if you could find a way to check in each day, really, with how you're doing, don't judge it and just say, oh, what do I need more of today? I think I need an emotional health day, or I need to connect with people more. And that can, my spirituality can feel brighter today. So I just wanted to share that again it's like, gosh, how do I love myself more? You can just be nice to yourself and do that little check-in today.
So good. And I'm really glad you mentioned the check-in because women, especially women, I think, don't take the time to create the space to slow down to check in. Work, 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 give, and then. And for us now, especially in the second half of life, to actually carve out that time. And we're not, and you could carve out days, weeks, months if you want. It really doesn't take that long to just give yourself some time to just breathe 5, 10, 15 minutes if you want, to just journal and just really ask yourself, how am I doing with all those aspects? And I love that you're not just talking about physical energy, it's everything. And all of those pieces create that flow. And to be able to go, oh yeah, physically I exercise and I got fresh air today. However, I really, got very triggered by so-and-so, and I really went down the rabbit hole and I've been angry all day. Good to know. What do you want to do about it? How do you want to shift? What do you need? And I love that you brought that in to really slow down and ask, what do you need? Because again, a lot of times women are really bad at that. We have been told to worry about other people's needs and not to slow down and go, well, I need, and, I would like to receive support. And yet that is not a strong muscle with a lot of women because that we've been told don't be selfish and we are the nurturers, the givers. So there's a lot of rewiring we are invited to do to have this kind of magnificent life that we desire.
I mean, I feel like we could do a whole podcast on women and receiving, and I'm sure you have probably, their feminine energy, right?
Yeah.
And that is such an important thing. I think we've, what's the word? Not idolized, but we've said, oh, be someone who sacrifices and gives. That makes you a good person.
Right. The martyr.
No
oh my
taught.
God. Yes.
Yeah. No one was taught to take time to receive. And we hear that term, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, or fill your cup up first. And I had heard a mentor once said, fill your cup and give from the place of overflow. I said, what do you mean? She said, give from the saucer. I'm like, oh, it's not even my cup is full. It has to literally be spilling out so that I could give. And I totally believe that. So yes, it could be 5 minutes in the morning, like you said, check in. And then at the end of the day, what I love, if there's any way to bookend it, is acknowledging yourself. I love that people talk about what you're grateful for. I would love for more people, especially the women we know, to thank yourself for 3 things: who you're being that day, who were you that day, right? Take a minute to acknowledge that. And we
Yeah.
know that that can then get integrated into our subconscious mind, which then influences our conscious mind.
So good, Rosie. So good. I know that you have this amazing opportunity for people. You have a guide called Beyond Anxiety, a journey to serenity.
Mhm.
Will you share a little bit about what this is? And I'll make sure that the link is in the show notes.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Basically, I started using this for myself. I was like, gosh, I'm anxious, running from thing to thing, often feeling like I have so much to do and so many people to be there for, right? So I thought, gosh, if I could show up with this relaxed approach, that would be so much better. And that's when I, again, started studying all these different modalities. I think we hear so much information. It's wonderful that it's out there, but I culled it down to 4 steps that you can do in 2 minutes that can
Ooh, that
help.
sounds
Yeah,
great.
right. I'm like, doesn't anyone love some practical strategies and that you can do
Yeah.
in probably 90 seconds? I put the extra 30 seconds on just so you could read what you're supposed to do, what you need to do. But when my clients go through this, they get immediate results because they start to feel calmer and happier because they're feeling more empowered in the moment. They
Yeah.
have these practical strategies and they start to tackle the anxiety. And so often it's not even what we're thinking and feeling that's so bad, it's how we start to judge it.
Yeah.
So if you can process your thoughts and emotions through this guide, then you start to just feel transformed and more, I think you just will experience more genuine fulfillment versus what we talked about earlier, which is checking things off the box. And by that, I mean genuine fulfillment in the moment. And at the
Love
end
it.
of the day, isn't that what our lives are about? It's just these mini moments of happiness that all build up together. And I know that's what's
Yeah.
going to lead to the results, the bigger results we want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God, this was so great.
Thank you. It was
So
so
I just
fun to
want,
talk with you.
oh my God, yeah, yeah, you beat me to it. Thank you. Thank you for being here and reminding everyone that, it can be easier and there can be such extraordinary results when they're just themselves and
Yes.
all the golden nuggets. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh my gosh, such a pleasure. Thank you, Junie.
So, sisters, I hope you were taking notes. Like and subscribe to the station if you haven't yet, so you don't miss anything. We've got some amazing guests coming up this season. And if you're looking for extra support, well, first of all, grab her guide and you'll see her information in the show notes. And if you're looking for support around your shadow and those blocks and those blind spots, and you're wanting to have love and more extraordinary in your life, you could also apply for a love breakthrough session with me. That's also in the show notes. All right, that's it for today. Mwah.